This broke-ass young farmer named Al Wayne had the mentality of a degenerate that stopped him from exploring anything other than farming to earn a living. However, he wasn't entirely useless as he had impressive attack power, which allowed him to work for the royal capital's court. Suddenly, his quests to defeat monsters and pick up hot chicks along the way really turned his life around. The story begins as a group of adventurers fight a deadly dragon who's giving them a run for their money. Without giving much explanation or context, the scene suddenly shifts to a different place where a young farmer, Al Wayne, is working in his farm. Al looks over his clean-ass crop produce and even harvests some of his fine-looking vegetables. After the harvest, Al makes a screen appear in mid-air that looks similar to something you'd see in an Apple Vision Pro, except that Al could see it with his bare eyes. Anyways, the screen showed that Al got an upgrade in his farming skills, which have now maxed out at level 10. Suddenly, Al's fisherman friend Testa appears, who congratulates him for his skill achievement. Testa also marvels at the fact that earlier Al was able to achieve a level 10 fishing despite not being a fisherman. After that, Al checks his ability status on the screen to see that he achieved a new title. As lame as it sounds, he was now called a true lover of nature by his screen. Furthermore, Al's attack ability crossed a hopping 65,000, which made Testa go nuts. Al suddenly remembers that he has to take his crops to the market before they lose their freshness, so he starts to rush. However, on his way, Al sees the same dragon from the opening scene bullying the adventurers again. Without much thought, Al attacks the dragon by literally throwing one of his carrots at it. And who knew that Al's carrot was the equivalent of Vegeta's Big Bang attack, because it literally obliterates the beast to smithereens. The adventurers wonder what the heck just happened, and they stumble upon the trail marks of Al's cart. Knowing that they could lead them to the dragon's attacker, they decide to follow it. Meanwhile, Al reaches and checks into the gate of the royal capital Magus, where he intends to sell his produce. While he's getting inside, Al notices that a knight is trying to kidnap a hot blondie and trying to run away on his horse. Channeling his inner Superman, Al decides to confront the kidnapper, and he easily defeats him due to his high attack power. This impresses the young blondie, who is now in awe of our brokey farmer. She tries to ask his name, but Al realizes that he's getting late for the market and dips instantly. The day goes well for Al as he's able to sell his vegetables successfully at the royal capital's market. After that, he proceeds to the exit gate of the capital, where he's greeted once again by the blondie that he saved earlier. She introduces herself as Phalia's Magus, the princess of the royal capital. Hearing this, Al gets puzzled as to what business might the princess have with a nobody like him. However, it seemed that Al intrigued her more than he could expect. She tells him to relax and not be so formal, after which she straight up offers him a job at her royal court. Phalias believes that Al, as special as the kidnapper knight he defeated, had a status level of above 500. Al, however, was not someone who was interested in the royal capital's luxuries.
No, I don't really want to do it.
The loser wanted to continue being a simple farmer and enjoy a mediocre life. As he tries to run away from the offer, Phalias proposes to give him 8.2 acres of land to farm on if he accepts. Meanwhile, the adventurers who fought the dragon return to their home Magus and inform the princess about the forest dragon's defeat. They tell her about the cart and all, and suddenly Phalias realizes that the description fits Al perfectly. But she turns to notice that Al had already left when she looked away momentarily. Phalias smiles and commits to herself of not giving up on the farmer so easily. After that, Phalias is called back to the court by the king. The knights inform them that a large group of monsters consisting of pixies and golems is approaching the royal capital. One of the elite knights of Magus, Cecil, tells the king that the monsters are sent from Hellzone, where the demons reside. However, the king wonders why the Hellzone would attack Magus. Their demon, King Macbeth, was already defeated by a hero, followed by a peace treaty with Magus. However, Cecil tells him that the king's former commander, Romeo Van Dead, is heading this mission. Cecil insists for the king and princess to leave the castle for their safety, to which the king refuses. He basically doesn't want to be a scaredy cat who escapes his hood in times of need. The king's crew then tells him that he must stay alive for the greater good and convinces him to leave. Night approaches and Al goes back to his house preparing to doze off. But suddenly Testa comes to his doorstep and informs him about the arrival of the monsters and that they need to evacuate ASAP. Al, as usual, cares the most about his beloved crops and rushes to check on them. He soon realizes that the threat on Magus is indirectly a threat to his livelihood. The destruction of the royal capital would result in him not being able to sell his produce. He wonders if he should step in and elsewhere. Cecil leads the crew escorting the royalty out of the castle. They reach a dead end, which worries the king, who asks Cecil to tell where they're headed. However, this is the point where Cecil reveals his true colors. It is revealed that Cecil has been a double-crosser from the start, and he disguised himself as a military commander to hide his true identity. He takes off the disguise to reveal that he is Romeo Van Dead himself. He then announces his wicked plan of pretending to be the king. Romeo says that he would use his transformation spell to fool the king's empire. The king and Fallius lose their shit after hearing this, and Romeo then launches a dark beam attack. The king uses a barrier spell to defend the attack, but his barriers soon start to break. Fallius also tries to help defend the attack, but Romeo suddenly intensifies his beam, which shatters the barrier completely. Now Romeo prepares to launch his finishing blow, but gets interrupted by none other than our farmer boy Al. He uses a farming spell to crack up the whole ground and destabilize Romeo's army. Romeo wonders who Al is, but soon realizes that he is the one who had been messing with his plans all along. This is because the forest dragon and the kidnapper knight were all on his payroll. Pushed into the corner by Al, Romeo decides to stop holding back and absorbs power from his army of monsters. He uses this power to transform into his most powerful true demonic form. This version of Romeo had a staggering status level of 78 and a power of 5,000, which worried Fallius. However, the girl had no idea that her crush Al was no pushover. The measly farmer boy exceeded Romeo's power by 60,000, which becomes evident when he proceeds to attack Romeo and defeats him with a single punch. All the other demon monsters shit their pants and escape the scene while Al saves the day. The next morning back at Mage's palace, the king praises Al for his efforts and offers him a position in the army. Al, being true to his loser mentality, declines by saying that he doesn't want to quit his farming. However, Fallius decided to reward Al with a 33,000 square feet land, but she requests Al to join the guild in return. Registering with the guild would mean that Al would occasionally help out mages in times of trouble. Al accepts the deal, but soon finds out that he got played by the Blondie, as the promised property is a barren wasteland. The next day, Fallius takes Al to visit the food market of mages. Farmer Bro gets excited seeing all the delicious cuisines on the nearby stalls. Fallius wonders how even the most basic shit is usually enough to excite Al. Then Al asks her how she isn't worried about putting up a show, as she's roaming the market being the princess and also not present at the court. Fallius tells him that her maid is her body double at the court for the time being. She also shows her an accessory in her hair which has deception magic, making her unrecognizable to the commoners. Fallius tells Al to call her Philia in public, as he fears for her to be caught. After that, they both reach the adventure guild that Al has to register for. They go inside and are greeted by the master of the guild, who heard a lot about Al's exploits. He then takes Al to the guild's secretary, a fine blue-haired chick named Helen. She greets Al, and soon the hungry farmer's stomach starts to grumble loudly. Helen realizes that he's hungry and serves him some delicious food, followed by an interview for the guild. Helen asks her why he wants to join adventures despite being a farmer. Then Al explains how he's indebted to someone who gave him the land, and now he has to return the favor. When asked about his strength, Al gets all modest at first. However, soon the three adventurers who fought the forest dragon arrive at the guild. They introduce themselves as Luke, Jake, and Lamia. They soon recognize Al as the guy who defeated the dragon in one shot. As soon as they talk about this, all eyes in the guild turn to Al as they marvel over his power. However, as we already know, our farmer boy is allergic to limelight. This freaks him out, and he reiterates that he's just a simple farmer. The three adventurers leave after telling Al that they look forward to working with him on adventures. Helen now becomes impressed with Al's work, and he asks her when he could join his first quest. Helen tells him that he would start at the G-rank quests, which are for beginners. She says that with time and experience, he could make his way to the S-rank, which is usually of heroes. But even the thought of being a hero is enough to make Bro throw up. Anyways, he gets a quest to go to the nearby forest and bring 10 stalks of milkgrass, which is an effective recovery potion. Helen then tells Al that he couldn't go to the quest wearing his lame-ass farmer outfit and needs something else. So Helen gives him a warrior's gown, which is supposed to boost his defense power. After he puts it on, Helen becomes amazed at how handsome he looks but doesn't say it out loud. Not gonna lie, the brokey farmer does have a lot of riz. Al thanks her for the gown and leaves the guild with Fallius. However, Al tells her that his quest would possibly have monsters, which means that he couldn't take the princess there. Fallius wishes him luck and leaves. After that, Al begins his quest and gathers 9 stalks of milkgrass with ease. He's about to get the last one, but notices a scale nearby. He checks his quest log to see if there are any monsters there which could have scales. It appears that there aren't, but Al reads something interesting. The possible monsters included orcs, which were in their mating season and were looking for pleasure. They could even be satisfied with a human, and just as he reads this, an ugly but lustful female orc comes out of nowhere. Al is freaked out at seeing the orc, as she clearly wanted some farmer action. Al almost gets molested by the orc, but the adventurer Jake arrives in time and saves Al. They soon get joined by Lamia and Luke, who are glad to see that Al is safe. Al then shows them the scale that he found in the forest. Jake tells him that such a scale could belong to a black dragon, but no one has seen it, which means there's no confirmation. Lamia says that the scale looks like a valuable item and he could keep it. However, suddenly the sky turns dark and a nasty-looking black dragon appears right in front of the crew. Bro looks so creepy and strong that even Avengers would shit their pants if they saw it. Al tries to check the beast's status and finds out that this dragon possesses an attack power of a whopping 230,000. Elsewhere, Helen has a nightmare about this same black dragon and wakes up at midnight. The next day, Helen looks tired at work and her mother looks very concerned about her health. She tells her that she is experiencing memory loss again and doesn't remember anything since night. Her mother tells her to chill out and go to the doctor to get herself checked. After that, Al returns to the guild and looks very tense. Helen greets him, but he says that he and the adventurers need to discuss something important. They meet with the guild master where Jake tells him about the black dragon and its massive power. Luke then says that this dragon is known as the malevolent dragon Oroboros. He asks the master if he knows anything about it, and the master looks in disbelief. Apparently, Helen knows something about it too as she looks distressed hearing its name. Jake further says that the dragon appeared briefly and then disappeared, allowing them to escape. Al then shows them the dragon's scale that he found, and Helen gets disturbed after looking at it. She gets terrified as she remembers something about her past and literally passes out. Al then decides to wait at the guild, but soon Helen's mother informs him that she's better now and there's no need to worry. She notices the gown that Al is wearing and he tells her how Helen gave it to him. The lady then tells Al that she's actually Helen's foster mother, as she found her lying with the same gown nearby a river many years ago. She doesn't remember most of the other memories of Helen's childhood, but does say that Helen has some connection with Oroboros. The farmer boy is shocked at this and decides to be Sherlock for the day. He goes to the library to see if there's any text available on the dragon. On his way, he runs into a weird-ass mailman named Reeks. He delivers Al a letter from his mom and then runs away saying that his job is done. Al then goes into the library and searches many books to find info on the dragon but fails. He decides to check news reports from 15 years ago of the time that Helen was found near the river. He hopes to search for any possible events that happened around that time which could link Helen to Oroboros. However, Al soon finds out that due to his low rank as an adventurer, he isn't allowed to access the reports. He whines in frustration, but soon his blonde lover, Phalias, walks into the library. The librarian is shocked to see the princess. Phalias puts her into her place by granting Al the permission to do whatever he wants. Al then investigates 15-year-old damage reports with Phalias and finds out that Helen's owner village was completely destroyed. The black scales of Oroboros were also found after its destruction. Knowing this, Al decides to take Phalias along to explore the ruins of Owner Village. They both get there, and honestly, the place is wrecked as hell. While going through the ruins, Al hears the calling of a boy and starts to follow the voice. They move closer to find out that the voice is a kid. Phalias gets confused as she is unable to see or hear the kid, which makes Al realize that the kid is a ghost. The phantom boy introduces himself as Lai and says that he'd been longing for someone to hear him out. Lai notices that Al's cloak is the same as his, and Al tells him that he got it from Helen. This is when shit gets serious as the phantom boy reveals that he was Helen's brother. Lai tells him that these gowns were enchanted and were gifted to the siblings by their father. Even at such a serious moment, Al seizes the opportunity to grab the blondie in his arms. Now, he wasn't doing what it seems. He basically wrapped her under his gown, which would enable her to see and hear Lai as well. Lai continues his tale and tells them that Helen was the only person who survived the village's catastrophe. This happened when one day Lai was practicing kung fu with his tiny sword and his sister came calling for him to eat food. Now before he could chow, the clouds turned dark and the scene became grim. Suddenly, beams of fire started to fall on the village, burning everything that came in sight. The same nasty black dragon appeared in the village and literally started to murder little children. Lai and Helen had no option but to dip as fast as they could before the dragon burnt them to ashes. However, two measly children couldn't possibly pull a fast one on Oroboros, who caught up to them in no time. They started running in the opposite direction, but Helen was low on juice, so soon she fell. Lai was a kid but still did everything he could to save his sister, but the dragon was too much for him. Oroboros bit the kid with its deadly fangs, and soon the ill-fated Lai bled to death. He swore to protect his sister, which were Lai's last words, and Oroboros left after announcing his plan. The dragon said that it would return after 15 years to devour Helen and would make Lai's spirit witness it. After telling him the story, Lai begs Al to save his sister, but the farmer says that he's too weak for it. However, Lai tells him that he's figured out that the dragon is only able to overpower its opponents if they fall in despair. He says that if Al doesn't get scared, he'll be able to get the dragon. Lai then asks Al to tell his sister not to blame herself for his death. Al realizes that exactly 15 years have passed since Lai's death, so he rushes towards Magus to protect Helen. In a desperate attempt to run quickly, Al carries Phalias on his shoulder like a sack. This is the moment where Bro ruined all his riz. As they reach Magus, the princess is in shreds because of the way Al carried her. However, he still manages to impress her with his farmer stamina. After that, Al decides to make arrangements for the fight with the dragon. Meanwhile, Helen's mother gets shocked when she sees that Helen is missing from her room. She walks alone towards the woods, and soon the feared dragon Oroboros appears. Seeing the nasty sight, Helen's PTSD gets triggered, and she begins to lose her shit. She begs the dragon to at least spare the villagers after it kills her, but Oroboros is like, nah. Feeling more helpless than ever, Helen literally tries to kill herself before the dragon could, trying to pull an Adolf Hitler. But Al interrupts the scene and stops her from making the move. Oroboros then attacks Al and throws him away towards the trees, but the farmer boy survives, making even the dragon wonder how he managed to live. Al then exclaims that he's a farmer and wouldn't give up so easily. He proceeds to punch Oroboros in the face, and that one actually hurt. However, Oroboros soon capitalizes and fights back with its claws. Then the dragon acts even more dragon and breathes fire towards Al, but he somehow manages to escape the attack. Helen asks Al to stop fighting for her as she doesn't want to see him die too. But Al tells her that it's fine and that she should stop blaming herself for Lai's death. He also tells her how Lai is proud of her sister and wants her to live unhappily for the rest of her life. Now, all of this positive vibe from Al is the opposite of despair that Oroboros feeds on. This results in the dragon's power weakening and giving Al an edge. Al announces that he isn't afraid of Oroboros, and the dragon's mad status starts to drop like crazy. It becomes so weak that the next punch from Al decides it, and the nasty black dragon falls to the ground, confirming Al's victory. The happy farmer boy goes to check on his side chick Helen, but suddenly the mother of all plot twists takes place.
What?
Helen grabs a knife and stabs Al in the gut. Al starts to bleed and slowly falls, still puzzled at why Helen is doing this. The loser even drops and breaks his recovery potion, leaving him no way to get back. Helen laughs like an evil witch and announces her final attack to put Al out of his misery. But before she could, another dragon appears and protects Al by stopping her attack. The dragon ends his confusion by telling Al that Helen's body is being possessed by Oroboros. This dragon looks completely different from Oroboros, as it is bright and beautiful. Al realizes that it is the benevolent dragon Mirage that has come to rescue Al. Mirage gives Al his magical regeneration energy and heals his stab wound completely. Mirage tells Al that in order to defeat Oroboros, he'd have to defeat his defenses and hit Helen's body. Oroboros laughs as he thinks Al wouldn't hit a woman, but Bro was in no mood to be a gentleman. Al hits Helen's body and the evil dragon stares in disbelief. Al then covers up his savagery by saying that he felt Helen spoke to him and told him not to worry about her and attack. Al thinks the dragon is finally out of her, but she suddenly grabs him and Oroboros emerges from her body. The dragon is ready to invade Al's mind and body and steal his soul, but it fails. To Oroboros' surprise, Al's basic ass brain had no darkness, desire, or distress that it could feed on. All that was inside him was his obsession for farming, and that's about it. Due to his holy farmer soul, Al is able to repel Oroboros and weaken its strength even more. At this point, Mirage intervenes and delivers a final blow to the wicked black dragon, finishing it for good. The sky above Magus becomes clear again and Helen is saved. After that, Al is put to bed rest for him to recover from the battle. Helen and Phalias come to see and look after their precious farmer boy. He soon wakes up and the girls tell him that he's safe at the guild's clinic. Phalias becomes so happy to see Al that she gives him a quick hug, followed by an even quicker realization that his side chick is watching. Anyways, Al then asks Helen about Oroboros and she reassures him that the nasty dragon has finally met his fate. Al gives a sigh of relief but is frightened again when Helen shows her a new technique. It appears that the dragon's invasion of her body ended, but it gave her the ability to turn her limbs into dragon arms and legs at will. Helen also tells Al that she remembers him telling her about Lai's message, which she'd follow and stay as happy as she could. The two get into a warm eye contact, and this obviously makes Phalias jealous as hell. Then Helen surprisingly asks Phalias who she is and why she hangs around with Al so much. Her disguise was still on and she couldn't reveal her royal status in front of her, so Phalias pretends to be Al's childhood friend Philia. The conversation is interrupted by the three adventurers and the guild master who barge into the clinic to see Helen. Everyone then turns towards Al and praises him for doing what seemed impossible by defeating Oroboros. The loser Al turns modest as usual and comes up with his lame remark that he's a farmer. After that, the guild does a little celebration where the guild master treats everyone to snacks and booze.
Party? No. Party!
Jake messes around with Al, forcing him to ditch his lime soda and try some liquor. However, Lamia stops him from doing that, and everyone laughs it off. As Al prepares to leave, Phalias comes to him and thanks Al for saving her city. After that, Al leaves and goes back to his farm to resume his daily work alongside Testa. Testa asks Al if it feels tough to be a farmer and an adventurer at the same time. However, Al tells him that he's the happiest when he's farming, so this doesn't bug him that much. All of a sudden, the mailman Reeks appears out of nowhere once again and dashes off after delivering Al a letter in his usual fashion. Al sees that this time the letter is from his father. He reads the letter where his father says that he knows Al is now visiting the royal capital. He also tells Al to visit them in Lugus as soon as possible, as it's been a while since he last saw them. After reading the letter, Al visits the vegetable market where he is particularly intrigued by a certain type of tomato. Their taste literally makes him drool, and the vendor tells Al that the produce is from Lugus. A letter from his parents wouldn't move him enough, but some tasty tomatoes convinced our loser farmer boy to go to Lugus. After deciding to leave, Al goes to the guild and informs Helen that he's leaving. Despite being only a side chick, Helen gets worried if Al is leaving permanently. But Helen gets relieved as Al tells her that he'll be back after a while. He asks Helen to allocate his upcoming quest to someone else, and surprisingly, Helen herself takes it up. Al gets shocked to see this, but Shoddy then flexes her dragon arms to show that she's no longer not good for nothing. Al becomes impressed and then heads out of the guild to leave, but sees that Phalias is waiting for him. Al tells his blondie that he's leaving to meet his parents, and she becomes all excited to hear it. So excited that she asks if he'd take her as well and let her meet his parents. But Al tells her to curb her excitement and that it wouldn't be appropriate for him to take her. Despite being disappointed, Phalias wishes him luck and tells him that she eagerly waits for him to return. After that, Al makes his way towards Lugus through the woods and enjoys his peaceful solitude. However, his blissful walk in the park is cut short by a lustful orc who starts chasing him. The terrified Al runs, but the orc manages to make him fall, and it seems this time that Al wouldn't be spared. But the farmer boy's plot armor saves him once again as a hot blue-haired chick comes and saves Al from the orc. Al then thanks the girl for saving his ass and tells her how these orcs have been after him since he came to Magus. Al tells the girl that he's an adventurer too, and then the girl introduces herself as Ruri. They both have a little chit-chat, after which they find out that both of them are headed to Lugus. Ruri offers Al to go together, but he becomes cautious and asks her if that's okay, as they have to spend the night together in camp. Ruri then jokes that she'd slice Bro's head off if he tries anything freaky, but then says that she ain't worried because she isn't cute. Noticing an obvious opportunity to flirt, the farmer boy tells Ruri that she's actually quite cute, making those cheeks turn red. After that, they get on their way to Lugus, and Reeks once again appears like a freaking ghost with yet another letter from Al's mom. Al then shows Ruri the bunch of letters that he had already been receiving from his parents. He then goes on to tell her about the tomato ingredients that he needs to find in Lugus, but all this veggie talk bores the girl. After that, Al asks Ruri about her family, but she becomes awkward and says nobody will worry about her. She changes the topic and suggests they set up their camps as it was starting to get dark. After setting them up, Ruri cooks some delicious food for Al, and they both start to eat. Al compliments Ruri's cooking, and after that he asks her why she's headed to Lugus. Ruri explains that she was training out here, as she needs to investigate demon activity happening in Lugus. Al wonders why a young girl like her would take up such a dangerous task, but Ruri tells him that she's the descendant of the great hero who defeated the Demon King. Al loses his shit hearing this, but still sounds concerned for the girl's safety. Ruri then melts at the fact that someone is actually caring about her. It starts to get late, and they both decide to doze off. Al decides to sleep outside camp, as laying next to Ruri would be inappropriate. But Ruri reminds him that there are lustful orcs still roaming the forest. This scares Al, and he changes his mind to sleep inside camp. As shit starts to get warm and cozy, Ruri reveals that it has been her dream that a friend talks her to sleep. Our Rizzlard farmer is up for the task, but Ruri falls asleep as soon as he starts talking. If that wasn't enough, Ruri kicks and punches Al in her sleep, which injures him when he wakes up next morning. After that, the two finally reach Lugus, where it's time to part ways. Ruri expresses her desire to meet Al again, and the farmer boy offers her to become his escort at the time of return. Al seems to be pulling this one very smoothly. Ruri agrees and draws for Al the map of Lugus so that he could find Ruri once he's leaving. Ruri then goes on to search the city for demon activity, and after looking for some time, she finds a little girl. The girl looks scared and reveals that her sister was kidnapped by a demon who took her to a nearby forest. Ruri leaves immediately to rescue her, and elsewhere, Al finds his home and is about to ring the doorbell. The door opens with a bang and mommy owl Lucica hugs her son so tight that he almost gets choked. She overdoes it with her hugs and kisses, and Sue Daddy Owl comes out of the house, mistaking Al for someone trying to harass his wife. Bro punches his own son and messes up big time. He then realizes that it's Al, and his furious wife gives him a death stare. She then beats up her husband, after which they sit down to have food. Al's mother treats him with some delicious dishes while his father gets burnt food as punishment. Al compliments her cooking and compares it with Ruri's. Mommy Al gets all excited hearing Ruri's name and asks her son if he has a girlfriend. Daddy Al also jumps to conclusions and tells his son to get married and start a family. This angers Lucica once again, who beats up her husband one more time as she thinks Al is too young. Al then clarifies how Ruri is someone he recently met and has no such intentions, after which his mother apologizes to him. Late at night, Al sits with Daddy Al to have some father-son talk. He tells him about his farming and the ingredients he's looking for in Lugus. Daddy Al looks at the map he has and asks him about the spot he's marked on it. Al tells him that it is to locate the hotel Ruri is staying in, but surprisingly his dad doesn't remember seeing any hotel in that area. After that, his father tells Al to go to sleep, but he hijacks his dad's bed. He apologizes for doing that as he doesn't want to go to his room where his mother is waiting to embarrass him. The next morning, Al finally gets the farming ingredients he had been looking for and decides to make his way back. He goes to see Ruri, but outside the hotel, he sees an injured man surrounded by some crowd. He tries to investigate, and the man tells him that he got attacked by a demon, but a girl with blue hair saved him. He then tells Al that she has gone to the woods and he should too if he wants to help. Al leaves, but the injured man turns out to be a hoax. He smiles, and suddenly the crowd and hotel disappear as if they were an illusion created by him. As Al gets to the woods, he's attacked by demons who look like oversized leeches. He tries to finish them up, but suddenly Ruri arrives and helps him to fight them. After that, the deceptive injured man from earlier comes out of nowhere and reveals that his name is Loki and he's a demon. He tells them that he staged all of the rumors so that Ruri and Al come running to him. He also insults Ruri for not deserving to be the hero's descendant due to her foolishness for believing the rumors. Ruri then asks Loki why he wants to involve Al in this. He replies that Al is in fact of more significance to him, as he is the one who defeated the forest dragon and Oroboros. Ruri is shocked to hear this and proceeds to attack Loki, who defends easily and strikes Ruri back. She gets damaged and falls to the ground, after which Al starts to heal her with his recovery spell. Loki finds the spell amusing and decides to attack Al now. Ruri apologizes to Al for not being strong enough to finish Loki, but Al tells her to relax and leave it to him. Bro literally says that I'm a kick-ass farmer who kicks ass and would tear this demon apart. That was truly savage. Al then trades a few blows with Loki, but he easily dodges Al's attacks. Loki fights back and his attack sends Al to the ground. But the farmer boy still doesn't give up and emerges out of the rubble to continue fighting. However, another strong attack from Loki brings Al to the ground, and the lid of his box of farming ingredients also breaks. Loki says that he's impressed with Al as he's still standing after taking so many attacks from him. He realizes that Oroboros and the forest dragon were truly no match for Al. Al then asks Loki why he said earlier that Al is the one he's eager to kill first. The demon then explains that he's identifying all the possible threats to his grand plan and eliminating them one by one. Al is the biggest threat to his plan, followed by Ruri. He also intends to kill Helen as she inherited the power of Oroboros. Furthermore, he explains that Al possesses the power of the good god that was once held by the hero. Likewise, the evil god's power was in the possession of the Demon King. Ruri reminds Loki that the Demon King is dead, and he swears back to make them meet the same fate. With this, Loki summons more demon leeches from the ground. Ruri starts to cut them one by one and assures Al that she'd take care of them while he should go for Loki. However, Al refuses and says that they're a team and must fight together. Seeing that Al is in no mood to slow down, Loki fires multiple beams at once and Al tries to protect Ruri from the attacks. After this, Loki seems to have had enough and he summons two leeches at once to attack Al. Unfortunately, this time, Al isn't able to dodge and the leeches get a grip of Al and start to drain the life out of him. Loki then initiates his final attack to end Ruri's life, and she closes her eyes as she embraces defeat. However, right in that moment, Ruri remembers the words of her parents from childhood about not letting self-doubt and others' opinions get the better of her. She feels disappointed for not living up to her parents' expectations, and Loki is about to attack her. However, just in the nick of time, Al emerges from the leeches, which look dead, and confuses Loki as to what happened. He explains how the tomato fertilizers that he carried as ingredients came in clutch due to their pesticide-like effects on the leeches. Al tells Loki that the demon leeches wouldn't be able to regenerate after this. Loki is yet again impressed with Al's tricks, but looks unfazed as he knows that Al doesn't have any strength left to fight. Despite this, Al looks determined to stop Loki from hurting Ruri. Seeing Al's persistence, Ruri slowly realizes what the words of her parents actually meant. She had unfortunately allowed the words of people who said she wouldn't become a hero break her willpower. She thinks to herself that what Al is currently doing is exactly what a hero must be like. A hero must never give up on his mission to protect others, even if he's left with no power. This awakens a new passion inside Ruri, who gets back up and stabs Loki with her sword, despite knowing that he could regenerate. Loki tells her to give up, but this newly found determination inside the girl allows her to harness the power of the good god hidden within her. She uses the power to launch a powerful attack called Sacred Eater, and successfully defeats the disgusting demon for good. Al congratulates Ruri, but soon passes out due to his exhaustion. Ruri lets him rest on her lap and smiles, followed by a realization that she has gained feelings for him. At this point, the farmer boy's Riz is going through the roof without any signs of dropping. Night falls, and Al gains back consciousness after many hours and finds himself still in the lap of Ruri. He freaks out and hits Ruri's face while getting up. Ruri says it's okay, but the girl becomes all awkward due to her earlier realization. She then tells Al that she didn't know the way back, which is why she decided to let Al rest on her for the time being. And that is utter bullshit, by the way. Al says that it was the right decision and that they could now leave for the city. On their way back, Ruri hears some strange, ghostly voices while passing by the woods.
You know what I hear? I hear the sound of you shutting the...
She makes Al hear them too, but soon Al realizes that it's not a ghost, but a sleepwalking mommy owl. Bro knows that his mother could get scarier than a ghost and decides to run carrying Ruri in his arms. He wanted to get back before Ruri could know that it was actually his mom and not a ghost. Anyway, they reach Lugus and Ruri notices that the elusive hotel created by Loki is no longer there. Ruri says that she'd look for some other accommodation, after which Al returns to his house. On his way, he really hopes that Mom isn't back as she'd be worried sick about him and would start asking him annoying questions. But his doubts are all true as his mom leaps right onto him as he opens the door. He quickly escapes his mother's embrace and runs, followed by locking himself up in the bedroom to sleep. His father loses his shit as the poor guy realizes that his wife would once again take out all her frustration on him. But this time, bro literally got hanged onto his swing by Lucica until morning. After sunrise, Al is all ready to leave for Oroboros to return to his farm, but his mother becomes clingy and tries to stop her son. Realizing that it's the only way he could escape, Al straight up tells Mom that he'd start hating her if she doesn't let him go. This calms down Lucica, who then proceeds to see off Al. Before he leaves, Mommy Al asks if he still wanted to really continue farming. Al confidently replies that he definitely does, as it is his only passion. This relieves Lucica and puts a smile on her face. He bids farewell to his parents and fetches some more nigiri ingredients, after which he prepares to exit the city. He is joined by Ruri once again as his escort and possibly new side chick for the rest of his journey. On the way, Ruri tells Al that he now gets targeted by demons just like her, which puts them in the same boat. Al tells her that he realizes this and he'd be there to rescue Ruri whenever she's in need. Hearing this, Ruri goes into full-on blush mode but continues to hide her feelings from Al. Back at the capital, Phalias has a sad goodbye with her dad, the king, who feels bad for letting her down. Back at the guild, Al and Ruri return, and Helen gets jealous of how close Ruri seems to be with her boy. Even her demon powers start acting up. The next day, Al catches a young boy picking some fruit before it's ripe. Ruri and Helen come to help on the farm, but Al is super mad. It turns out he's just annoyed that the boy took his fruit too early, not that he stole anything. He yells a bit, but the boy just looks super hungry. Al ends up giving the kid a cabbage instead, and the boy is amazed by how tasty it is. Helen tells them that while Al was gone, monsters have been attacking everywhere, cutting off trade and making food really expensive for poor people. Suddenly, an alarm bell rings. There's a monster attack. It's a giant swarm of monsters attacking the city. The guards and adventurers try to fight them off, and Helen uses her new demon powers to battle too. Al jumps in with his hoe and psychs tons of monsters away, but there are just too many. They're about to get overrun when knights from a different hood called Antisburg show up. They have a magical sword called Levitine that scares all the monsters away. Al couldn't believe there's a sword that could scare off monsters so easily. It's nighttime and Al shines up his favorite tool. Suddenly, Phalias shows up to say farewell. Bro didn't understand what she meant, and she explains she isn't coming back. Just then, her helper hurries in and says it's time to leave. Phalias thanks Al for everything, leaving Bro clueless. A couple of days pass and the monster attacks stop, making life basic again. Then the little boy Al gave a cabbage to comes back with his mom. The mom apologizes for her son and offers Al free tailoring if he ever needed clothes fixed in town. They buy some more vegetables, and as they leave, Al is totally surprised to see Reeks again. Al gets another letter from his mom, but this time Reeks gives him another paper too, and what he reads inside leaves him speechless. Over at the guild, Helen and Ruri are reading the same paper. They find out Falaise is marrying the Prince of Antisburg, Nedelis. Helen thinks it might be a way to get that country to help protect their own. Ruri thought it was weird how the monsters stopped attacking after the knights talked to them, as monsters weren't supposed to understand humans. Just then, Al rushes in and shoves a piece of paper at them, telling them to read it. It was a super mushy letter from his mom, and Al rips it up in embarrassment. He gives them another page, and the girls start reading his mom's report about the monster attacks. She had heard about the monster attacks and snooped around to find out if that was okay. Instead, she stumbled on a big secret, that the special sword everyone thought would fight monsters was just a regular sword. The girls are amazed by her detective skills, but Al urges them to keep reading. Turns out, his mom used to be a commander in the Shadow Puppets. This blew Al's mind completely. The girls explain these spies could uncover any secret, which made sense about how his mom figured out the sword thing. The story continues, revealing the monsters were being sent by a sad monster dude in Antisburg. Apparently, his girlfriend got kidnapped and he was forced to attack to get her back. The girls figure out the bad guys in Antisburg are behind it all. They sent the monsters to seem like heroes, then they demand Princess Falaise's hand in marriage as a reward. Al, determined to save the princess, decides they have to stop them. He explains that even though they weren't knights, saving the princess is the right thing to do. The girls get convinced. Helen worries about actually getting into Antisburg, but Al has a plan as Bro finds a guide, Reeks, to help them sneak in. Back in Antisburg, Prince Nedelis is swamped with mayors and lords begging him to fight off monster attacks. He complains he couldn't be everywhere with just one magic sword. Each leader offers him amazing things in exchange for protection. Nedelis, thrilled with his scheme, tells the demon Gazelle to wreck even more countries. Gazelle, however, hates this. He doesn't want his monster friends to die. But Nedelis beats him up and reminds him he's holding Gazelle's girlfriend hostage. Suddenly, Falaise walks in and scolds Nedelis for being mean to his workers. Just then, a guard bursts in with bad news about their fancy wedding carriage being late. The prince freaks out, but seeing Falaise watching, he tries to act cool and says he couldn't wait for their big event. Alone in her room, Falaise wishes she could see her Al again. Meanwhile, Nedelis lurks outside, wondering who the heck she's thinking about. The next morning, Al grabs his new clothes from the tailor and promises to bring more veggies. He meets up with the group and Reeks explains their daring plan. They pretend to be salespeople at the big ceremony to sneak inside and find the captured girl. Meanwhile, Reeks would lure some monsters there to expose Prince Nedelis' fancy-ass sword as a fake. Helen is confused about how Reeks would get monsters, and that's when he drops a bomb. He's actually a demon. Everyone's jaw hits the floor. Reeks explains he was also a shadow puppet, just like Al's mom. Apparently, some demons could look just like humans, and this particular demon they were saving fell for a girl, but ended up in the prince's clutches. Al vows to save everyone, and off they go on their mission. They reach Antisburg and bluff their way past the guards by pretending to be farmers. Al feels pretty good about their disguises, but the girls aren't convinced. They talk more about the plan, which is to sneak into the castle, grab Gazelle's girlfriend, and head to the church. There, Gazelle would reveal the truth that the prince's holy sword wasn't so holy after all. But just as Al heads for the castle, a guard stops him. Thinking he is a mad genius, Al claims he is delivering vegetables. The guard isn't buying it though, and suddenly they are running for their lives with all the guards hot on their heels. Helen gives Al a shove and tosses him right inside the castle. He lands in the perfect spot and finds the girl. He tells her they need to escape to save Gazelle, but the guards suddenly interfere. Bro uses his veggies as usual to fight them off. The girl is stuck with chains, so Al scoops her up and runs for it. He finally bumps into his friends, but they don't have time for chit-chat as the guards keep on coming. They spot the church, and the girls tell Al to save Falaise while they hold off the bad guys. Inside the church, the wedding is happening and Falaise just said yes. As they lean in for a kiss, the door bursts open and Al crashes the party, knocking someone over. Falaise is so happy to see him, but then Al gets accused. Nedelis says Al is a bad guy here to kidnap the princess. Al yells back that the prince is the real villain and his fancy sword is a fake. Nedelis wants proof, and even the king backs him up because he's seen the sword's magic. But Al insists he has proof, and just then, a guard runs in with terrible news that monsters are attacking the kingdom. We see that the cheeky bastard Reeks is behind it, making the demons appear to expose the sword. The people yell at Nedelis to use his sword, but when he calls for Gazelle, he sees him back with his girlfriend. Reeks offers the prince the magic sword, but the prince shits his pants and wouldn't take it. Al yells that it's a fake and throws it at a monster, who eats it in one bite. Then Gazelle tells everyone a shocking secret that he's been controlling the monsters with a special evil flute. He says the prince made him do it by threatening him. The king asks the prince if it's true, but Nedelis just laughs and says, "Psych, it's too late," and he's already sent a giant army of monsters to attack Magus. Gazelle is surprised because he didn't give that order. The prince explains you could trick monsters by leaving dead monster bodies around. The princess thinks they're done for, but then Ruri and Helen rush in and say the capital wouldn't be conquered so easily. After the last monster fight, they train the guards and adventurers to be even stronger. We see them now bravely fighting the demons. The king is so happy, my man literally starts to cry. Al tells Phalias she doesn't have to marry Nedelis anymore. The guards storm in, and the prince orders them to grab the intruders. But instead, the guards all drop their weapons. Ruri and Al explain they told the guards about the prince's evil plan, and the guards decided to join their side. The prince is furious and tries to attack the king, but Al stops him with a giant radish. Al punches the prince and gets taken away by the guards. Phalias jumps on Al in a hug and tells him she loves him. Helen, being the side chick, feels all messed up and envious of the princess. Even though Al tries to explain it's a mistake, the king thanks him and welcomes him like family. As the king leaves, Reeks stops him with a letter showing that Nedelis was just a tool for someone bigger. Reeks warns the king to be on guard. Later, everyone parties at the Adventurers Guild. The guildmaster tells Al everyone wants him on adventures, but Al just wants to farm cause he a farmer boy. Then a disguised Phalias comes to thank them for saving the city. Helen has a strange feeling that Philia resembles someone a lot, which makes Al nervous. When Phalias shows up again without her disguise, Al couldn't keep the secret any longer. Phalias meets Ruri and declares she's the one who would have the farmer Al couldn't deal with all this demand from the ladies and escapes to work on his crops in disbelief about his riz. Even though he's picking vegetables, Ruri and Phalias follow him. They both want to know who he likes more, but Al just tries to change the subject by talking about his crops. Ruri wonders if there's someone else and Al admits it. Both girls are surprised, but before they could ask more, Al runs away.
Run!
Back home, Al looks at a picture and remembers a girl named Ilvia with a sweet smile. The story jumps into flashbacks from 15 years ago. We see Al's dad digging up potatoes, surprised at how many Al has already picked. Al is excited, but his mom gets upset that his dad is making him work so hard. Al decides to share some potatoes with the neighbors. Suddenly, they see a girl running away from two men. The neighbors explain she's an orphan who lives alone in the mountains, and the men are trying to sell her. The girl bites one of the men and escapes, grabbing Al's basket of potatoes on the way. She gobbles them down, but Al finds her hiding. She tries to run away again, but then sees Al has more food. He brings her a bowl of potato soup and tells her the potatoes are better as soup. She's scared, but Al leaves the soup behind. At first she hesitates, but eventually she couldn't help but eat it. Over a few days, Al keeps bringing her food. Finally, she waits for him, and they chat. She's Ilvia, and she's surprised Al grew such tasty food. Al's stomach rumbles, and Ilvia generously offers to share her sandwich. But then the bad guys grab Ilvia again, still wanting to sell her. Al says she's not stealing anymore, but the men explain how the girl caused them a huge loss and they desperately want their money back. Al begged the men to let Ilvia go, promising to pay back what she took. They couldn't trust him, but then Al's dad showed up and found out what happened. He offered the men enough rice to last them 3 months, and they were happy to take it and leave. Al worried about them, but his dad was more worried about his mom's reaction. He said they have to eat less for a while. Just then, Ilvia came back with the potatoes. Al's dad figured they could use some help on the farm, and Al was all for it. He invited Ilvia to live with them, and she was thrilled. 2 years flew by. Ilvia worked hard on the farm with Al. When she wanted a break, Al, who loved farming, told her to play with the other kids, but Ilvia said she only wanted to be with him. Suddenly, Testa came running, chased by a swarm of angry bees. Luckily, Al's mom was there and chopped the bees up in no time. Then she announced they were all going to the capital to find a new house. Al thought their house was fine, but his parents said he should take care of the farm while they were gone. Once they left, Al asked Testa why the bees were after him, as there shouldn't be any bees around. Testa pulled out a map whispering about a big treasure hidden in the nearby forest. The woods were scary normally, but with no bees around, Testa thought it was safe to search for the treasure. Al agreed, but Ilvia wanted to tag along. Al warned her it might be risky and left her behind. On the way, Al grumbled about Ilvia sticking by him all the time, thinking she should play with other kids. Then Testa surprised him by saying Ilvia actually gets picked on when she's alone. Al felt terrible, finally understanding why his parents wanted to move. They reached the spot on the map and stepped on a special stone, making a mountain door open and sending them tumbling in. Inside, they found a weird rock they couldn't understand. When Al touched it, it lit up and everything went black. A giant monster showed up and attacked Al. A volcano exploded, raining fire everywhere. Al woke up to see Ilia, but a sharp pain shot through his chest. Testa arrived and Al, confused, asked what happened in the woods. Outside, everything was destroyed and dusty. The bridge to the big city was gone, leaving them stranded. Food was being shared carefully, but there wasn't enough for everyone. Al raced to the farm hoping to find something to eat, but the crops were all burned. Again, the pain hit him and he collapsed, yet all he could think about was finding food for Ilia. Night fell, and Ilia crept into an old man's tent, her stomach growling. But then she thought of Al's words about theft being wrong and how happy he was to see people enjoy his food. Shamefaced, she left with no food. The next day, Ilia gathered all their rations and brought them to Al. He was surprised, asking where all the extra food came from. Ilia, with a small lie, told him it was a gift from the capital. Al beamed, and Ilia, looking at him, said how much she looked forward to tasting the vegetables he would grow. In the days that followed, Ilia kept giving Al most of their food. Finally, overcome by hunger, she collapsed. Al, worried by her absence, found Ilia lying still. Testa, rushing in, explained it was starvation. Al couldn't understand. He thought they had received the city's aid. Testa then told him there hadn't been any message. The truth dawned on Al, and he understood Ilia's sacrifice. Tears streamed down his face as he blamed himself for her death, but then came the memory of his promise to grow vegetables for her. Grief-stricken, Al found his resolve and went back to work. In the present day, after taking down a dragon and shot, Al finds a girl passed out on the ground. He brings her back to his place. When Al wakes up, the girl's already awake and freaking out. She asks where the heck she is and thinks Al might have plans to get freaky. Al tries to calm her down, saying he just found her and wanted to help. The girl explains she was on her way to ask for a job at the Adventurers Guild, and Al offers to take her there, missing no opportunity to flatter a cute chick. The girl then introduces herself as Linnea. Later, Ruri visits, but she sees Linnea wearing Al's clothes and gets super flustered. Ruri understandably misunderstands the scene and runs off crying, calling Al a womanizer. Anyway, they head to the guild where Helen listens to Linnea's request. Linnea says weird stuff is happening in her town, but it's hard to explain exactly. Helen thinks the request is a bit unclear, but then Al jumps in and takes the job. It turns out Linnea is from Gal Town, which blows Al's mind because Gal Town is famous for having the best asparagus ever, and Al couldn't wait to go being the farmer boy. They get ready to leave, but Linnea wonders why Al's being so nice. Her dad always told her guys could be sneaky, so she thinks Al must have a hidden reason. Al tries to convince her he's not bad, even though she's still a little suspicious. She decides to give him a chance. Ruri watches from the side, feeling a pang of jealousy. They hitch a ride to Gal, but on the road, a big scary orc chases after them. Al freaks out completely, but the driver seems pretty chill. Then the driver takes a peek back and sees a whole bunch of orcs after them, which isn't good news for Al since his past encounters with lustful orcs gave him PTSD. When Al wakes up later, he finds a pendant on him. Linnea explains it calms people down. They finally reach Gal Town, and something seems weird as the guards are cleaning with mops instead of holding weapons. In the marketplace, Al spots a food stall and couldn't resist ordering a skewer of asparagus. As the food cooks, Al tries to ask the vendor if anything odd had happened. The vendor says everything is okay, then hands Al his food, but it is totally burnt. Al is confused, then realizes the guy is acting wacky. Suddenly, a cart topples over, and when Al checks on the vendor, he seems strange too. Before Al knows it, someone scoops him up and takes him away. Later, Al finds himself at Linnea's house. Turns out, her family makes these calming pendants, which might be why she isn't acting goofy like everyone else. Al asks about her parents, and Linnea says they disappeared when things went haywire. The whole town was acting crazy and couldn't talk properly. Then the big cheese himself shows up, who is the lord of the town, the very same guy who started the whole Eat More Asparagus movement. Al feels like he'd met a legend. The lord also wore the same pendant as Al, and when asked about the strange things happening in his town, he flips the conversation. Instead, he offers dinner, but just as they are about to eat, Al gets taken away by the same people again. Later, they finally make it to the lord's house for a real meal. Al tries to ask about the town again, but this time the lord's guards surround him in a flash, but Al, being super strong, beats up all the guards. He goes to attack the lord, but Linnea jumps in front of him. That's when the truth comes out that, shockingly, Linnea was working for the lord, who was actually controlled by a demon. This demon explains his whole evil plan. He put his magic in a crystal and hid it in the town's statue of the goddess, and this allowed him to control everyone. Even worse, he plans to do the same thing to mages. He heard about Al defeating a powerful demon and a scary dragon, so he figured controlling Al would be the best way to take over the royal capital. Lilia, it turned out, was being forced to help because the demon kidnapped her parents. Just as the demon is about to put his crystal in Al, Al throws a weird-looking bomb. He doesn't seem to do anything, but then there is a huge boom, and the statue in town gets destroyed. Confused, the demon realizes the bomb was just a signal for Al's friends. Lilia had been spying on Al all along, but Al explains that he planned all this when he got taken away earlier. It wasn't really any bad guys who took him away, it was actually Ruri and Helen. The two had already figured out all the shit going wrong in the town and took Al away to plan their move. They even managed to save Linia's parents. Al yells at the demon to give up, but he grabs the Lord and threatens to kill his body. Al uses his special asparagus power and shoves a bunch of it down the Lord's throat. He reminds him that he really likes asparagus, and that breaks the demon's spell. Seeing his chance, Al launches an attack and gets rid of the demon for good. Lilia then thanks Al for saving the day and gives our farmer boy a kiss, which makes Ruri even grumpier. Lilia declares she'd find Al when she's older and win him over. Bro is totally surprised by how out of control his Riz is getting and heads back to Magus. Al goes back to his farm with Ruri, Helen, and Thalia is lending a hand. Thalia spots the pendants Helen and Ruri have and gets envious. She wanted to tell Al her feelings again, but Ruri reminds her to give him some space. Just then, a yell rips through the air. Al is horrified to find some weeds growing amongst his crops. These weren't any ordinary weeds, they were nasty ones that stole nutrients from nearby plants. He couldn't believe so many had sprouted while he was on guard. Helen finds it funny that weeds scare him more than demons. They head to town to sell their vegetables, which are such a big hit now that even the king comes in disguise. He wants to know when Al would marry Thalia's, but Al dodges the question. The king offers Al even more land and fancy new farming tools. The thought of the tools makes Al's eyes light up. Ruri tries to warn him, but Thalia's accidentally throws a potato at Al, which ends up knocking Al unconscious. In a dream, Al sees a beautiful figure trying to speak to him, but he wakes up with a start. They clear out all their veggies, and Al has a wicked grin as he thinks about wiping out those weeds. He bumps into Reeks and proudly shows him the weed killer he plans to use. They both then spot some jerks grabbing a girl. Al jumps in and knocks two bad guys out like flies, but the third one scurries away. The girl, all scared, seems clueless, but Reeks identifies her as demon kid named Ilia. He tells Al that she is the daughter of the demon lord. Ilia begs for their help. Apparently, her attendant Volfi freaked out and said she was in danger. After that, he ripped open a magic doorway and shoved her through, which made her enter Magus. Ilia wants to get back and save her demon pals, but Reeks explains that it's a super long boat trip across the ocean. Al, ever ready to save girls even if they are demons, hands his herbicide to reach for his plants and volunteers to get them there quicker. He claims to have a special way to travel, which turns out to be him running across the water while carrying Ilia. Ilia freaks, but Al warns her that stopping means sinking. They zip right across the water and land in demon territory. Ilia is super grateful to Al, but their welcome is not so pleasant. Volfi, looking mad as a hornet, blasts them with magic and even tries to shoot Ilia. Al jumps in and stops the attack, but Volfi, not giving up, keeps throwing magic their way. Al outsmarts Volfi and knocks him unconscious, and Ilia is baffled by his aggression. He jumps back up and prepares another attack, but then Al's mom unexpectedly appears and knocks him out cold. She explains that she heard from Reeks and came to check on Al. They travel together and reach the Demon Lord's castle. To their shock, all the guards are dead. Al wonders what caused this massacre. His mom suspects they were mind-controlled, just like Volfi, whom they just fought. Ilia races into the throne room and finds her dad lying hurt. Back outside, Al finds a barely conscious guard who mentions a girl he suddenly felt compelled to warn about. Suddenly, Al's mom lunges to attack Ilia, but Al stops her. He realizes that it couldn't be his real mom, as she would have crushed him in a hug the moment she saw him. The woman is surprised he could tell the difference with her perfect disguise. She drops the act and finally reveals who she actually is, and the moment Al finds out who it is, he is stunned and just watches in disbelief. It's none other than the girl who lived with his family many years ago, Ilia. Al couldn't believe his eyes as Ilia is alive. He remembers seeing her die, but here she is. Ilia explains it was the evil god's power that brought her back. To prove how strong she has gotten, she attacks Ilia. Al jumps in and saves his friend just in time. There's a giant boom and a cloud of dust. When it clears, they are on a flat plain as the whole mountain is gone. Ilia is surprised Al dodged her attack. She guesses it must be because he also had the evil god's power inside him. Al gets totally confused as to what she is talking about. Ilia explains that his love of nature power that made him stronger was actually a gift from the evil god. Al doesn't believe it because he has never even met the evil god. Ilia just smirks and says he actually has, but wouldn't tell him more unless he joins her. She promises they could be happy together again, using her magical eyes to make him want to say yes. But Yuria's voice breaks the spell. Al comes back to his senses and realizes what Ilia is doing. Ilia becomes mad and she grabs Yuria by the throat, choking her. Al lunges to help, but Ilia stops him with a cold stare and says that she'd spare her if he joins her right now. Yuria yells at Al to escape. Ilia, frustrated, decides to end Yuria for good, but just as Ilia attacks, Al's pendant glows brightly. When Al blinks, everything's frozen. A beautiful lady with wings appears, explaining she's the good god. Thanks to Al's pendant, she could show up and use her power to stop time, but it wouldn't last long. The good god explains to Al how Ilia was right and that Al was indeed using powers granted by the evil god all this while. She offers to remove the evil god's power from Al and replace it with hers, letting him fight. Taking his hand, she fills him with her power. Time unfreezes, and just as Ilia swings at Yuria, Al uses his newfound ability. But instead of a powerful blast, a bunch of tiny shoots poke out of the ground. Everyone stares in confusion. Ilia laughs, calling it a silly trick, but the little shoots grow fast, turning into thick vines that grab her. She struggles free, summons her sword, and charges. Al, ready this time, creates a wall of vines to block her. The vines snatch her again, and no matter how much she cuts them, they just grow back and tie her up. That's when Volfi bursts in, ready to attack with his magic. He checks on Yuria, who's happy he's acting like himself again. Ilia escapes their fight, using her magic too. She rushes past Al to attack him again, but Al pleads with her to stop. Ilia says she's tired of this and they'll fight again soon. Then with a dark cloud around her, she vanishes. Volfi yells at Al about Ilia, but the Demon King reminds him that Al just saved them all. Al reveals Ilia is his sister and tries to explain her connection to an evil god, but the king doesn't know much. He promises to help if he learns anything. Yuria is sad to see Al go and thanks him for all his help in saving the demons. However, Volfi becomes suspicious and thinks Al is trying to trick her. It wasn't Volfi's fault for being suspicious because apparently any girl that the farmer boy talks to goes mad over him. Except the fact that in this case, Yuria was just a child, so there really wasn't much to worry about for Volfi. Al returns to his farm and finds Testa helping with the crops. He tells him everything that happened and makes him remember the time they both went to explore the ruins to recall meeting the evil god. But Testa only remembers him fainting and doesn't remember seeing any demon. Al is bummed, but they drop the topic and proceed to enjoy some fine-looking tomatoes together. Al thanks Testa for the assist and invites him to the capital, but Testa says he is swamped with fishing. On his way back, Al takes the quicker route, but guess what? Another lustful orc decides to chase him down. Al realizes that he has had enough and decides to fight it out. He throws the biggest punch he could, but the orc takes very little damage. Al watches as it gets back up, forcing him to sprint for dear life. His adventuring buddies Luke, Jake, and Lamia show up just in time, rescuing him. They tease him about still struggling with orcs, wondering if he was getting rusty. Al does feel that something is off, especially since they all also thought it was weird the orc survived his punch. They head back to the guild, where Al fills Helen and Ruri in on the whole ordeal. They were also surprised that an orc could take a hit from him. Helen requests to see Al's stats, and that's when they notice his incredible strength has gone down. If that hits the farmer boy that when the goddess blessed him, she must have gotten rid of the evil god's skill that juiced up his power. Helen calmed him down, explaining he's still way stronger than most adventurers, even without the crazy boost. Reeks shows up again with another letter from Al's mom. Helen and Ruri peek in to read it, but it isn't good news. The letter actually warns the girls not to get too close to Al. This freaks out the girls who suspect that Mommy Al is somehow keeping tabs on them, given that she was the commander of the shadow puppets and all. Al keeps reading and his mom promises to look into this Ilia's matter and said his home is always open. Then comes the usual exaggerated part about how much she loves him. Reeks bumps into Phalias on his way out, who says that she wants to spend time with Al, and let's just say, Helen and Ruri aren't thrilled to hear this. As they all hang out, Al couldn't shake the mystery of Ilia and this evil god off his head. Still, he tries to have fun with his friends. He thinks back to how they all met and all the crazy stuff they've been through together. He knows he has to get tougher to keep them safe, and also to protect his crops because after all, he's a farmer boy at heart.